What's going on, guys? It is Tyson the Trainer here, back with another episode for you, another podcast, and today's podcast is all about pregnancy, right? Now, funnily enough, I did actually create this podcast before, and then I sent it to a client who was pregnant, and she said she talked to her doctor and dietitian about a few things, and turns out we have some more relevant information that is even more helpful for you guys. So redoing this podcast because I want to make sure the information I'm sharing with you is actually correct and that is most up to date. So happy days there. Now, in today's podcast, when it comes to pregnancy, we're going to be talking about pre-pregnancy, we're going to be talking about during pregnancy, and we're going to be talking about post-pregnancy when you're breastfeeding. Just so you guys can kind of understand, which, again, a lot of you who are females obviously know about this, and I'm just trying to help fill those nutrition and training gaps where appropriate, just so people feel confident when it comes to, putting food in their body and exercising. Because at the end of the day, you want to have your child having the best opportunity it can to live, right, and be healthy and come out a healthy baby. And so that's why I think it can be quite nerve-wracking when there's so much information out there. But the good thing is we do have a lot of thankfully there's not a lot of dickheads out there talking about things that you can do when you're pregnant that are actually detrimental to the baby's health or to the female's health. Because at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is in any way, shape, or form negatively impact the baby or yourself. Cool. So that is going to be the podcast. Now, all this information is coming from organisations in Australia, actually. So pregnancy-birth-baby.org and Tommy's.org and the South Australian Government and the Australian Government in general is where I'm getting all of these informations from, just so I can make sure, again, is the most up-to-date. Because if there are organisations, especially in Australia, or again, anywhere in the world, if there's an organisation and it is about pregnancy, it's going to have up-to-date information. Otherwise, there is going to be a big issue, obviously. Cool? So, with that being said, we are going to start off with the pre-pregnancy side of things. Getting pregnant, all right? Now, one thing I actually didn't know is that there are only certain times of the month that a female can actually get pregnant. So funnily enough, there you go. That's a little bit of new information for me. And the fact that pregnancy is basically only possible if you have sex 5 days before ovulating or on the day of ovulation. So knowing this, the most fertile days for females is within those 5 days moving up to ovulation, and ovulation is usually within the that 14 to 16 day mark for the most part. So if you want the best chance of having kids, do it then, right? Because as you're leading up to it, sperm can actually live up inside the female, I think for up to 5 days, they said. Here you go. So since sperm can live up to 5 days inside a woman's body, it just means that you've got the best possible availability if you are having sex, every day or every second day leading up until ovulation. You're going to have plenty of a higher chance of actually having children. Okay. Now, with that being said, the nutrition side of things, that people are like, there's a lot of myths out there about what makes people fertile and what makes people more infertile. We actually don't have a lot of research in regards to foods that make people more fertile. There's not a lot of evidence there. There are foods that can obviously boost libido, oysters and things like that we found are obviously, what's that word? Not libido boosters. Can't think of that word off the top of my head, so I'm going to come back to it. But, things like that can increase, aphrodisiac, that's the word, can increase sexual appetite, but not so much fertility. That we know of so far. There may be things out there, there's probably old wives' tales and stuff. And if you want to try those things, then, you can, but is there any, evidence behind that? No, unfortunately. Mainly be in the future, but probably not. And then also with saying that, one thing you'd probably want to start supplementing with when you're actually trying for kids is Elevit. It is just a female's pregnancy supplement, and it contains basically a lot of things you're going to need during pregnancy, which is great, and then during breastfeeding. So, your folic acid, your iron, your vitamin D, your B vitamins, it's got everything in there. So Elevit, I think, is the best female pregnancy supplement on the market. So actually start taking that while you're trying to conceive, okay? That's what they say. Take it while you're trying to conceive. Take it. So this supplement you will take every day all the way through, even through breastfeeding, taking it all the time, okay? Because again, we're trying to get enough folic acid in, trying to get enough iodine in, trying to get enough vitamin D in, trying to get everything in, which is the goal, okay? And that supplement does that. And again, obviously, we do not want to just replace our diet with supplements, but in the case of pregnancy, you do. Obviously, we're not replacing the diet, but we're making sure we are taking a pregnancy supplement like Elevit, okay? So taking that And that also can potentially increase your chance of getting pregnant because you have all the nutrients, you need. But yeah, that's basically what we want to do there for the nutrition side of things, just trying to get pregnant, right? So not having to avoid anything yet, just taking a supplement, trying on those days. And then also when it comes to training, train as normal, okay? Even if you get pregnant, you do not need to change your training anytime soon, which is a cool thing because, the more active you can be, the healthier the baby's going to be, right? Now, in saying that, one thing we want to be aware of, let's say you are now pregnant. So we're going to move on to the pregnancy side of things, okay? You're still taking all of it. When you are pregnant, the best thing to do is to start to lower your impact exercises and your jarring and things like things that jar. So anything that causes any stress on the pelvic floor is not something you want to have happen. All right, well, you should actually be working on pelvic floor exercises. So there's heaps of pelvic floor exercises out there. Well, not heaps, but there's a fair few that you can go through that I would say start adding into your training program. Things you can do at home too. This will help again. Will strengthen that pelvic floor area for the most part because females need that. There are a lot of females who have weak pelvic floors and they're not even pregnant, and this can lead to, wetting yourself. There's just many issues with weak pelvic floors, and that's why we want to make sure that you are, trying to strengthen those. So looking at some pelvic floor exercises to do every day, avoiding jarring exercises, avoiding any exercise that's going to be like you on your stomach. So no planks, right? I would say no lying leg raises. What else have I got here that I made a list of actually? No planks, no lying leg raises, nothing that's going to really increase your, I wouldn't say do any high intensity training, to be honest. Like nothing that's going to really increase your body temperature because we do not want to severely increase our body temperature. I'm saying that's me. You do not want to increase your body temperature severely when you are pregnant. We do not want to go into that very hot zone. So for the most part, try and keep cool. Still do your weight training. Don't try and do high intensity. Don't try and you can do cardio, but don't try and do a lot of cardio that you gash yourself out. No burpees, no planks. What else did I say? No lying leg raises, no sit-ups. What else? No sit-ups. No, no skipping, no hopping, none of those things. Okay, so nothing that's like impactful, that's bouncing up and down on the pelvic floor. None of those things, for the most part. And then again, if we're going to be in a plank position, I don't want to be in a plank position. I don't want anything pushing out towards the outside of my stomach either. And this is also females can have abdominal separation post-pregnancy or during pregnancy. It can slowly separate the abdominal walls because of how big the baby is. And so that's also something we just need to consider that we're avoiding. So with that, just telling you now with the training, you can train all the way basically through until you're close to popping the baby out, as long as you can, as long as you feel good and as long as you're keeping it to mainly strength training and not loading like I just said, or any jarring or any pelvic floor issue. Anything that's going to cause any issues to the pelvic floor or the abdominal wall overall, okay? So that's really simple with the training, which is good because I think a lot of people get stressed, can I train and can I not? And I'm always like, yes, you absolutely can train all the way through. And I suggest it because, again, it's going to make you healthier overall, okay? So in saying that, let's say now you have not had the baby, sorry. Let's say now you have just found out you are pregnant. Congratulations, very exciting time. Now, going on from still taking Elevate, like we've said, we need to make some nutritional adjustments, all right? Nothing crazy, but just a few adjustments here and there to make sure that everything is kind of ticking along nicely. So I've got a list here that I'm going to read off. Things you want to make sure you're avoiding for the most part when you are pregnant. Again, the cool thing is that research has changed over time for this. We used to think we had to avoid a lot more than you actually have to, which is kind of good because it does mean you have a little bit more freedom. But there are things that I'm going to say that obviously, it's like things that I say with this, it kind of makes me blow myself away because I'm like, how do people not understand this, right? So firstly, no smoking and no alcohol and no drugs. That's it. No smoking, no alcohol, no drugs, okay? Not for the pregnancy and not for breastfeeding. I know I shouldn't have to say it, but I have to say it apparently. So none of that, right? Apart from that, one thing we previously thought, including myself, that you had to cut out your caffeine. But you can actually limit your caffeine and have about 200 milligrams a day is what they have found is safe. So if you still have a morning cappuccino, you can still have a morning cappuccino. Happy days there, all right? But do not have more than, again, 1 cup of coffee a day or 1 tea a day. 200 milligrams is a large cappuccino. Or 200 milligrams is, again, any large caffeinated beverage. You can have a Monster Energy drink that has, usually they have 100 milligrams in it. So again, 100, 200 milligrams max for your caffeine, okay? Limiting certain types of fish. So I used to think that you have to cut out all types of fish. but you don't. And fish actually plays a huge important part in the baby's development, and you actually want to make sure that you are getting fish in your diet for the most part. So the fish you actually want to avoid, which I'm assuming, I don't think a lot of people would eat these types of fish. First, sushi, okay? No raw fish. We do not want any raw fish at all because that is not good. So, unfortunately, you guys got to cut sushi out. You have to cut, what did I write here? So shark, I don't think anyone obviously eats shark or flake. Broadbill, marlin, and swordfish. So I don't know if any of you guys eat any of those things. If you do, cut them out. Tuna is not on the list there, so that's good. That's got a good amount of omega-3s in it. And also, if you aren't having fish, taking an omega-3 supplement. Because, as it says here, making sure that you are getting some type of omega-3s in your body, and also, just fish in general is good for the baby's development. So having fish 1 to 3 times a week, or having an omega-3 supplement, which I think I actually haven't double-checked. Elevate may actually have omega-3s in it. I didn't double-check. But if it does, then you don't need to take that supplement. But having some type of fish in your diet will actually do more benefits than you would think. So that is something that I thought previously was wrong. So limit caffeine, limit the choices of fish. So you can have tuna, you can have things like that. No sashimi, no sushi. Avoid raw or partially cooked eggs. So this means, unfortunately, you can't have raw eggs, which I don't think anyone's having raw. But you can't have poached eggs either, okay? You have to have fully cooked eggs. Okay, and same as fully cooked meat. You can't have any raw meat, raw shellfish, any of those things because, well, one, you have a risk of salmonella, one thing, and then obviously, when things aren't cooked, there's a risk of higher diseases out there. So we want to make sure that all of our food is cooked for the most part. And in saying that, weirdly, rock melon falls under this category of things not to eat when you're pregnant. And this is because of listeria. Listeria? Yeah, listeria. So basically, listeria and toxoplasmosis, haven't heard of that one before, are uncommon infections that can be passed on to an unborn baby. So there you go. That's what it has told us. So again, with eliminating all those foods, rock melon is included in that. And then also making sure that, you wash your hands before preparing food. You make sure that you wash your vegetables and fruit before eating them. So basically, we're trying to keep things as clean as possible to avoid any chance of listeria, okay? Making sure chopping boards and cooking utensils are all clean, so not having anything dirty. I already said washing your fruit and vegetables before eating and washing your hands. Avoiding cold meats, so ham, salami, cold cooked chicken, pate, soft serve ice cream is there too. Pre-prepared salad, and cheeses that are like soft cheeses, so brie, camembert, feta, ricotta, all those things you want to avoid too. All right. So that is a bit unfortunate, but at the end of the day, you are trying to make the baby healthy, and so a short-term sacrifice of not having as much cheese, cooking your eggs all the way through, limiting caffeine, avoiding rock melon, not having any sushi or raw meats. It's a little bit of a price to pay, but at the end of the day, it's not a forever thing. Okay, so just making sure you are cutting out those things for the most part. Interestingly enough, I thought cheese wasn't on the list anymore, but it still is on the list, and usually it is actually the softer, moldier cheeses because of the mold. Again, so we just don't want any chances of risking passing anything on to the baby. Okay, so avoiding all of those things. And weirdly, I don't know about soft serve ice cream, so there you go. No soft serve ice cream either. All right, and again, just keeping things clean, having a clean environment, cooking meat thoroughly, making sure vegetables are cooked thoroughly and also washed. And so make sure that when you reheat food that it's very hot, so you actually got it quite warm to kill all the bacteria in there. Because when things are heated up, like listeria is killed by cooking, okay? So when you're cleaning all your veggies, cleaning your fruit and stuff like that, obviously you're not going to cook fruit. When you're cleaning it and then you're heating it to quite a high heat, you are going to be avoiding any chances of listeria really coming through. So at least you're safe on that point. And yeah, that's basically the things you have to avoid, during pregnancy and while you're breastfeeding too. Because the thing with breastfeeding, which I'm assuming a lot of you know, is that you can transfer still nutrients and things. Well, you can transfer nutrients, but you can also transfer things like alcohol, drugs, all those things you've consumed with foods and stuff too, onto the baby. So we want to be able to avoid that. And that still means when you're breastfeeding too, no drinking, no drugs, fuck, no smoking. Again, I'm like, okay, I have to say this because, it is what it is, but it kind of makes me sad that you have to say that. Like, fuck me dead. Common sense, people. If you're going to look after a child, have common sense. Have responsibility. But we're not going to get into that. We're talking about having the baby and just making it healthy. Okay, so going through trimesters. and your nutrition. So with the nutrition, like I said, the food we eat is still roughly this. We just eliminate those foods and have moderation with certain foods. But that's all we need to know about, like, things to avoid and things to have. We're still taking our supplement, Elevate. We're still training normally, okay? We're now in our second trimester. This is when you can increase your calories by about 350, okay? From second trimester onwards, you can start to increase your calories, because what's going to be happening is as as the baby is growing, it's going to require more calories. So now you can increase your calories by 350, basically from any food of your choice. You still, if you are someone who's tracked food before, you're a calorie aware, make sure you are still eating enough due to your energy demands, plus the extra 350 calories, okay, on top of that. Now, a lot of people can get scared, I'm going to gain weight when I'm having the baby. Yes, probably. And you're not eating for two, which means, you're not eating fucking an extra double amount of calories, but you do have to have a little bit of extra amount of calories in there to make sure you are fueling the baby's growth at the end of the day and fueling yourself. And so that's why, people get caught up in their weight and things like that when they're pregnant. And it's like, fuck me dead. Just make sure you are getting enough food in, not just for you, but also your child. So don't try and undereat, all right? The good thing about this, before I say about eating 350 calories, if you are someone who's a little bit heavier, and you want a higher chance of reducing gestational diabetes, you want a higher chance of having a good, healthy baby, lose weight. All right. The heavier you are, the more risk you have put on the child for having deformities or miscarriages or an unhealthy baby. So if you are someone who's quite heavy and you could be pregnant, losing weight is actually still okay, because lowering your overall body weight makes the pregnancy safer. And because you have extra nutrients, which is actually coming from fat tissue and fat storage overall, a lot of the nutrients will go to the baby, right? But then you'll still have nutrients. Well, when I say nutrients, like, you'll still have energy reserves coming from body fat tissue, so the body's not depriving the baby at all, okay? And with this, obviously we're not doing crazy calorie deficits. We're just trying to eat a little bit less to help you lose a little bit of weight to get into a safe range to be able to have the baby. I hope that makes sense. All right. So again, 350 extra calories if you are someone who's just, body neutral, or you're not trying to lose any more weight. You want to make sure you are eating that extra food. Now, as we get to the last trimester, what we want to make sure is that you are eating about 400 to 450 extra calories, okay? So you can have a little bit extra on that last trimester. And then also with breastfeeding, you want to keep those same amount of calories. So I just say on general, 400 calories extra, right? You can basically start 400 calories extra from the second trimester. Because again, 350 to 400 is 50 extra calories. There's nothing, 350 to 450 is a bit of a change, so you can have a little bit extra. If your weight still creeps up and you're not okay with it, then it's okay. But for the most part, about 400 calories from the second trimester all the way through breastfeeding until you finish breastfeeding is probably the best thing you can do. Extra food for you, great. Nutrients for the baby, amazing. Everything's well. So I would say definitely that's probably the way to go in regards to nutrition, consisting with that. And plus, with extra food just means, again, maybe there will be a little extra bit of weight gain, but it's like, you're feeding the baby, okay? As long as you're not eating like a crazy, you're not going nuts, that's probably the best thing you can do. Now, with saying that, even though I'm like, yep, you can eat this, there's no other restrictions, blah, blah, blah. When you're pregnant, there are going to be things that happen, you're going to have morning sickness possibly. You're going to have different cravings for different foods. And it's like, the most important thing that I want to try and stress to people is try and get as much food as you can in during the day. Try and get protein in during the day, because protein's still important. If you are someone who does get nauseous or, things like that, make sure you try and get, smoothies in. Smoothies are a great way to get some food in without actually having to force feeding yourself, especially if you do get morning sickness or you feel sick, just so you can kind of avoid that for the most part. Because I know some people just, again, with that sickness, it's very hard, or with that nausea and trying to look at food or certain food you just don't want anymore. It is what it is. So like, I've got pregnant clients who I train, and I'm like, okay, well, like, what can you do this week? Because it really does just depend on the person. Some of them can stick through it, do what they need to do. Some of them really struggle. They can't eat as much. So it's like, we just kind of play it by ear and watch how they go for the most part, just so we know they're on, just try and get in everything they can. And that's also why the supplement comes in handy, because it does meet those RDIs and, all the healthy things that we need to get, that females need to get in their body. And so at least you're having that supplement, is going to kind of still tick over those bases, even if you're not eating enough for yourself just because of sickness. But if you can, please make sure you do get enough food in, right? And honestly, that's really all you guys have to know. I thought it'd be a lot deeper than that, but thankfully it's not, so it's not that confusing. And so we can kind of just go back and, put this all together. As you're trying to get pregnant, having sex within about 5 days of ovulation, trying to have sex every day would be your highest chance. Taking Elevate from basically when you're trying to conceive all the way through to finishing breastfeeding. When you are pregnant, you want to make sure that you're avoiding foods that only cause you issues. So, limiting fish intake to 3 times a week and not choosing high mercury fish, limiting your soft and moldy cheeses, reducing, not having any uncooked or raw eggs or meat, and making sure they're fully cooked, cleaning all of your your fruits, your veggies, your cooking, all those things. Make sure everything's cleaned all the time, and make sure you're cooking things all the way through. Limiting your caffeine intake to about 200 milligrams a day, making sure that you're not smoking cigarettes, taking drugs, or drinking alcohol until you finish breastfeeding. Exercise-wise, exercise as close as you can to it. Avoid pelvic floor or any things that cause any issue on the pelvic floor. Make sure, so again, no jumping, no burpees, no fucking heavy step ups, none of that bullshit, no planks, nothing that's causing it, no lying leg raises, nothing that's causing any issue on the stomach. Working on doing plank pelvic floor exercises during your pregnancy, so you strengthen your pelvic floor. And then also when you have had the baby, go and see a postnatal physiotherapist, okay? Go and make sure there's no abdominal separation. Go and check your pelvic floor. Go and make sure that it's all good, okay? A lot of females who I've trained who have had kids, did you ever go see a physio after that? Nah, I didn't worry about it. And which is fine, but there are some females who I've had that have pelvic floor issues. And it's like, well, you should have got this sorted fucking years ago, Or they still have abdominal separation, and it's like, this should have been something that was addressed a long time ago. So I urge you, after having pregnancy, go and see a postnatal specialist to make sure that your pelvic floor and your abdominal wall are still all good. Okay? And again, stick with this, eat well, do everything you need to do. Eat those extra 350 to 400 calories a day, every day, until you are finished breastfeeding. Then you can go back to normal, all right? If you have put on a little bit of weight during pregnancy, after pregnancy, and you're ready to get back into it, once you're finished breastfeeding, I had a lag for a second. Once you're finished breastfeeding, then you can go back into going to your deficit. And that is it. I hope it was helpful. If you guys have any questions, as always, you know where to find me, at Tyson the Trainer with 2 R's. And until next time, my friends, I'll speak to you then.